This is going to be going over the best way to use your fully decked selectors. If you want to know what to take from the hero selectors, both the normal and the fully decked ones in general, just in terms of which heroes are good, then you can check out the tier list video, which I already put up, and I'll link it in the comments, because this is just going to be talking about which ones you should pick with the decked ones and which one you should pick with the normal ones, assuming you already know what you're picking. So I'll be going over what to do for people who are still missing a bunch of units, so like newer players, or just if you're missing a lot of units, and then also what to do for people who have all or almost all of the units already. The fully decked selectors, or I guess they're just called special selectors in game, give you the hero at level 60, 6-star awaken with skills plus 15. Pretty much completely maxed out besides imprints and friendship. New players get 6 of these, while returners and veterans will get 4. This is on top of the 4 standard hero selectors. That's an artifact selector, but there's 4 standard hero selectors that we'll be getting as well for all players. That's a lot of units to pick. That's 10 for new players and 8 for everyone else. Of course, since the deck selectors max out our skills, we're going to want to make sure that we're picking units that have high Mola costs in order to maximize the amount of Molas that we would save. For example, somebody like Litica doesn't really need that much Mola investment. As a minimum, I'd say you probably want +4 on S1 for the bleed chance, and then -1 turn on the S3, which is +3. That's 9 Molas total. You could +15 her just for damage if you have spares, but as a minimum, it's just that. Compare that to somebody like Celine, who really wants to be +15, which is 33 Molas, 33 versus 9. This is typically where you would take Celine from the fully decked selector, and then just take Litica from a normal selector and Mola her normally. As for how you can know what Molas the unit needs, you can check out this sheet here, which I'll link in the comments. This is, in general, going to just be covering the units in the tier list, with a couple of extras, like I listed the free units here, which you're not going to take from a selector, but it's for anybody who wants to know, plus some bonus units down here. Maybe I'll add more in the future. I'm definitely going to, when the balance notes hit, I'll add any useful buffed units to this list as well. You can also make a copy of this, just so you can sort it by Mola cost or something, and delete the units that you're not picking if you want, maybe. First things first, though, you're going to want to make sure that you're actually picking a good unit, because there's no point in picking a unit if they're not going to be used. Like, let's just use Alencia as an example. Like, she definitely is a unit I can see people picking, but comparing Alencia to somebody like Litica, just because Litica takes less Molas than Alencia doesn't mean that you should skip Litica completely just to pick Alencia. You should make sure you're picking a good unit first and foremost. And the way I would do this is you're going to want to decide on the 8 or 10 units you plan on choosing first. So do keep in mind the balance notes that are coming that I mentioned already on 7/25, so your plans might change afterwards, but you'll want to decide on your 10 units more or less, and then just figure out which ones have the highest Mola costs, and then pick the high Mola costs with the fully decked selectors and the low Mola costs with the normal selectors. For new players though, Path of Air gives so many daily summons and 5-star tickets that odds are you already have some of these units. Also, Path of Air has the Episode 3 hero selector, which has either Mort or Politis, so you're going to be able to pick one of those as well, which you could factor in too. This event's also going to be handing out a bunch of daily summons, so you might hit some units while you're rolling as well. Just as an example though, let's take a look at some of the Mola costs for some of the units at the top here. So Mort and Celine both want their skills completely maxed, so that's 33 Molas. And then Genu is pretty close to max as well. It's 30 Molas, you just don't really bother with his S2. Fene is more or less the next most expensive one, because Politis can be DPS, can be tank, it depends how you want to use her. But Fene, if her S2 is not really that needed, it's just for PvP, and she's not like super strong in PvP or anything, so technically you could skip this in general. Maybe she gets an EE or something. But Fene needs 22. And then we also have somebody like, we can just say, let's say we're taking Politis as a DPS, she would be 33. That's 5 units we've gone over so far, which returning players and veterans, you only have 4. So you've got Mort, Genu, Celine, and then either Politis or Fene. This is where you would be deciding, are you going to use Politis as a DPS or a tank? Because if you use her as a tank, Then Fene costs more, so you're just going to be taking Fene from the fully deck selector instead, and also potentially uh, holding out for her being buffed or getting an EE for PvP. Then if you're using her as DPS, then you could just take Paulus and then Mola Fene normally, because it's in even 33 anyways. For newer players, though, you're going to have 2 more selectors, and I mentioned the episode 3 selector, but we'll just ignore that for now. You would take both Fene and Paulus, and you have 1 slot left. The next most expensive is, we could take a look. I don't think Bruiser Abigail is very real, so we're just going to look at Crown with 21, Rowana with 18, and then I would say that's mostly what you're looking for. So you might just end up picking Crow in this scenario, or if you really like Lytica and you want to plus 15 her, it could be Lytica. Odds are you probably have at least one of these units though, so you might just be picking Aria or even Eligos with the fully deck selector because they cost a lot of Molas, or Alencia because the C tier was all of these units together. So it could be Alencia, it could be Eligos, depends on who you want. Of course, pick the unit that you want more than just looking to save Molas, because you should have a decent amount of Molas at least. And then for returning players, you basically, or returning / veteran players, you have 4 fully decked 4 normal hero selectors. So like I mentioned, it's Mort, Genuous, Lean, and then let's just say Fene as our 4, and then your normal selectors would be Lytica, Crow, what did I just do? Lytica, Crow, Rowana, Paladus. And then for new players, it would be Fene, Mort, Genuous, Celine, Paladus, and let's just say Crow as your fully decked, Lytica, Rowana, Elvira, Abigail, for example, as your 4 normal selectors. And it doesn't necessarily, like, you shouldn't just go down the list. You should think about what units you want to pick or whatever, which I go over in the hero tier list. The general idea is just decide on the units you want and then pick the higher Mola costs with the fully decked selectors. So now let's talk a little bit about what to do for people who have a lot of units already. Of course, with the normal hero selectors, typically people are taking imprints for units from the selectors, but there's another way you can imprint, which would be to fodder a unit you already have built into their Moonlight or Alt limited version, and then take the one that you just fed away from the fully deck selector. If you look at my fire heroes, there is a fire hero that is missing here, and that is Huayang, because I killed off my Huayang when Bystander Huayang came out to imprint her, because my Huayang was S-imprint, so I just tossed her into Bystander Huayang, and she instantly hit SS. Which means that I am now missing a Huayang, and that means that I need to go and get Huayang back. So Huayang will be one of the units I'm taking from the fully deck selectors. And then if there were, say, an ML Abigail that came out, I would very likely kill off my Abigail and feed her into ML Abigail if she was any good. So something like that. Of course, you'd want to be picking units that you wouldn't mind imprinting them in the first place. Like, moving an imprint from somebody like Fire Ravi to Apocalypse Ravi, or the other way around, is pretty pointless because both of those units kind of suck. I don't really have anything I want to do with this year because I already did it last year. Last year I killed off my Shu for to imprint ML Shu, and I guess I got another Shu afterwards, so she's B-imprint again. And then I also killed off my Tywin to feed into a Tywin, which is why my Tywin is plus 15, because I got him from the fully deck selector. So if you have any imprinting regrets, that's one way you could somewhat fix or move some of your imprints around. Or even just if a unit fell out of favor and you want to imprint a much stronger unit that is, or an alternate form of theirs, whether it's ML or just some sort of limited form, and you want to imprint that one instead. I've been keeping all my dupes separate, so I don't really have anything that I want to imprint this year. So I'll just be doing the other method instead, which is if you're low on Molagoras or don't value imprint that much, or you would just prefer to do it this way, what you can do is you can look to pick units that you just haven't built yet. So like down here, Chloe or Teo are units that I don't have built yet. Teo would be a plus 15 unit if he ever gets built, probably, because he is just a DPS unit. So I could build him, and if he ever becomes good, it would technically save me a bunch of Molas in that instance. You would kind of be losing an imprint in this case because I don't think I have them out of my thing, but I have a bunch of Teos in my storage, and even if I didn't, just because Teo's not very good right now, I would be losing out on a imprint for a potential better unit. But if you value the Molagoras more, that could be something that you do. Last year I took Sez. I have a plus 15 Sez here. Completely untouched, by the way. Never used this character, but the idea is there. I also took Fumir last year, if I remember correctly. I also never used her either, but that was just because I didn't own Fumir, and now I have a plus 15 Fumir, even though she doesn't really need this much. I think she's just like plus 8. Max out 5 here, and then 3 here. Yeah. So that is something you could do. And then also, let's go back and look at Abigail real quick. So my Abigail's only plus 7, because I was messing around with her. But let's pretend she has no imprints. If you were, let's just say you wanted to imprint a future ML Abigail, let's pretend she exists. When you move your Abigail, if you take an imprint for Abigail, you could just get a plus 15 Abigail and then fodder off your lower imprinted one, even if you have no imprints on it, or your lower skill enhanced one, just so you have a copy that is higher skill enhanced now, or something like that. That is something you could do. So for the units I'll be picking this year, I plan on getting Hwoyoung on this account because I don't have a Hwoyoung anymore after killing her off. There's also Elagos, who I never built. So Elagos, might grab him just so that I can get him plus 33, save, or plus 15, 33 Molas, save a bunch, and then either Fenris, maybe Kana, because I might build Kana for Earth Expedition. I don't know if she even needs the Molas for the damage, but I could just do it just for higher exped damage. There's also Fenris, who I could build over here. And I also kind of want him for Expedition, so something like that. There's also Araminta, who I never built. Yeah, I could build Araminta. She doesn't really need as much Molas. She's a cheaper Mola option, so I might just end up building her normally instead. But those are what I probably plan on picking on my main account. Of course, the balance patch coming up, so I might just pick something from a balance patch instead. And then what I did last year was I took Shu and Tywin because I fed them into their ML counterparts. Says because I never built him, and then Fumir, who I never summoned, which I already went over earlier. I could have taken Fumir with a normal selector instead of a deck selector because her Mola cost was pretty cheap, but there was really nobody else I wanted to build at the time, so I just took Fumir. This is on my alt account where I kind of own a lot of units already because I started when Origin came out, so Path of Air plus the Zeeg selectors. I already own a bunch of units, but this is more of like a newer account perspective. So there's Genua, Lytica, Charlotte, Politis. Who else is fairly relevant? Valencia, I guess. Charles, Mort, Celine, and then less. Oh, there's also Rowana, Destina, Schneel, and that's slightly less relevant. But even like Fenris, Vildred, Bologna, I already have all of these characters. All Arventa. So what would I be taking on this account? Honestly, I'm probably just doing PvE stuff on this account, but let's pretend like I'll do meaningful PvP on it. I am missing Fene, of course, so Fene and Cecilia for PvE is something I plan on picking up because I'm still missing both of those units. Let's open this instead. So I'm missing Fene and Cecilia still, so I'll probably pick up these two. There's also Crow, Elvira, Abigail, Arya, and then maybe Elagos. I'm not sure about Elagos because I don't think I'll ever gear this account in a way that I would use Elagos. Because of, like, yeah. So Elagos is maybe, but then maybe, I already have Valencia, but maybe, like, Destina, maybe Knockul. We can include Elagos, so that's Fene, Cecilia, Crow, Elvira, Abigail, Arya, Elena, Knockul, which is 8 characters, I think. Right? Fene, Cecilia, Crow, Elvira, Abigail, Arya, Elena, Knockul. That's 9 characters. So we have 1 left, and there's a lot of options for that slot. You can either pick up another niche PvP unit, Or if I look at PvE, I'm missing another unit or two for Perdition Aquina. I have Charles, but I do need one more counter unit and one more other unit to do something because I don't have Young Senya yet. So I could get Irvelin, I guess. So Irvelin's a potential option. I'm still missing another unit though, so I'd have to figure something out about the second unit I'm missing. For Perdition, hooray, I'm missing Holiday Euphony, so I'm not too set on picking Bihu just because I'm missing Holiday Euphony anyways. And at level 3 or level 4 Blessing, I could potentially not need Bihu, so it's probably not Bihu for me. And then I don't plan on picking anything for Hall Trials because you can make top 5% with like literally anything. If I were going to aim for top 100 consistently, I would. Actually, I already have Araminta, but I was thinking Araminta, but I already have her. So I guess nothing for Hall of Trials, and even I don't really recommend picking stuff for Hall of Trials just because how easy it is to hit top 5%. We've still got 2 more Constellation bosses coming out though, plus the balance patch. So I'll just wait and see what units are needed for those 2 bosses, and also what gets buffed for the last Selector. And maybe some units will fall out, like I think Elagos is very likely fallout. But for the units that I mentioned so far, Fene, Crow, Aria, Elagos, and I guess Cecilia, because Cecilia is 18, and then Ella is 17. So those are going to be the most expensive Mola ones from the units that I mentioned so far. So I would be picking those, and then Elvira, Abigail, and Nockwol would be from the standard selectors. And of course, there's still one missing, which I don't know where that's going, but let's say somebody gets buffed who is a plus 15 unit, then Elena would probably fall out, and I wouldn't be full decking her, I'd just be normal. Where is Elena? Here. I'd just be normal selectoring her instead, or something. But that's it for the fully decked selector guide. There is a lot of units I left off of this Mola spreadsheet, mostly just because a lot of RGB units just are not useful at all. If you're grabbing the units just for collection and want to know about Mola costs, then you can ask in the Discord, of course. And like I said, after the balance patch drops, I'll update the sheet here and also the hero selector tier list. I'm pretty sure I said this last year, but maybe I'll expand the sheet to cover more units. Even though I said it last year, I very clearly did not expand the sheet to cover more units, but surely I'll do it this year, right?